What's up, you guys? Thank you so much for joining me today on the meditation channel. So I've been doing a little series here on Teal Swan's response to the deep end. And today I thought we would watch the documentary episode 1, her thoughts on them. I also watched an interview with the director and the producer, Bits and John, I believe their names are. And first and foremost, it was the longest video ever. But yeah, I mean, I kind of left, still in the middle of this whole thing. I'm not quite sure. I think that some of it, definitely they caught some stuff that, doesn't make Teal look great. But at the same time, I just find her work to be so powerful and so helpful. So I'm just still very torn about this whole situation, and I thought we would watch this together and comment, and I obviously love to hear your thoughts on this because it's just very interesting to hear people's perspectives on this topic. So let's watch it. It's 14 minutes, okay.
Hi there, everyone. So what everyone wants to know today is, what do I think about the first episode of the Deep End series on Hulu? So here I am, unedited, and I'm going to tell you what I think so far. First, I want you to remember that you're watching a TV show that was done about me, that I did not get any payment for, and that I have no control over. And when
You didn't get paid? Teal! Oh man, girl, you should have gotten paid. Man, that sucks for you.
one of the most vulnerable and nerve-wracking things in the world is watching someone else's portrayal of you and your life. First, let's start with the positives. Visually, it's beautiful, high quality, and cinematic.
Yeah, I gotta give the Deep End kudos on that. They did a really good job visually. They made it look really good. So they had a budget, a very good budget when it came to the editing team. Once again, I just really want you guys to see both perspectives because, at the end of the day, the Deep End was portraying Teal a certain way. And today we're going to find out her responses to this and her defense, I guess. Yeah. But when you got a budget, you can do some amazing stuff.
Loved the positive testimonials from fans, supporters, and people who understand me and my vision for the change that is needed in this world. This shows that what I am doing has really had a positive and deep impact on so many people. And that means everything to me. It is what keeps me going every day. This episode made it very clear that I am about the truth. I think viewers will get a very clear idea that myself, as well as those who follow my material, are about very deep, raw, real, honest stuff. Quite frankly, a lot of you are sick of the pretense and are looking for something very real. It is clear that I'm not just going to tell someone something that makes them feel good when it is clear that doing so will not help them to recognize and break free from destructive patterns.
So one of the things that the director said in the interview is that he found that Teal gives people answers, which I personally didn't quite think so, but I do think that she does speak her truth. Sometimes that she tells you the things that you don't want to hear, that you don't want to listen. And here's the thing, when you're a professional therapist, when you're within that industry, legally, you can't do that because there are repercussions. So in the end of the day, it's a little bit something for us to think about, because I think personally, I like it when somebody goes, hey, this is what I think. This is where I think what you're doing. I don't know, just bluntness, truth. And sometimes some people do need to be told. Not everybody, but sometimes some people do need to be told. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Patterns. And for people who are not ready for that kind of reality check, deep dive, or change themselves yet, they can clearly know it's not for them yet. I am very happy about the scene where I'm explaining the difference between healing and just feeling better. In this segment, I also got to present to the world the idea that regarding mental health, we need to start asking what happened to you instead of what is wrong with you. Sometimes a good idea has to come from someone on the outside. In this case, someone on the outside of the traditional mental health field. I am trying to create positive change in the mental health field. And this episode displayed that. I loved the part where one of my trainees was making a call saying how she's going to come home a different person and how she wants this to be her life's work. It meant so much to me that she found the connection she has been looking for, in my work especially, and about how positive this work can be. Plus, it's always fun to see those transformative private conversations that I don't see when I'm holding a training. I also thought that the segment where I have the audience raise their hands.
So what I like about this is that this is her first feedback, her first, I don't even know what to say, like review of the episode. And she is pointing out good things. Like she is saying, hey, there are quite a few things that I really liked. If you want to think of it in the narcissistic kind of world, obviously it's very complimenting towards her. So of course she's going to like that. But just saying.
To give the person on stage the awareness of how many people are really not okay in their lives was quite powerful. It makes people see that they aren't alone. But unfortunately, there are some things I want to clarify after seeing this first episode. This is a documentary series, and all documentaries start with lots of video. I mean hundreds and hundreds of hours. And that collective footage is then edited down to tell a story. Some things are included, but a lot always gets cut out.
That's true. I mean, if you were going to see the entire time, I mean, her workshops go for about 4 hours. So, you know, that the episode, I think, goes for like an hour. So there's no way it's possible for them to show you everything in the 1 hour.
This episode helped me realize something about my work. If literally anything, positive or negative, is taken out of context, and I mean a very long context, it can no longer be properly or fully understood. All media productions, including documentaries, are a series of sound bites, but sound bites just don't work to accurately portray what I am doing. I wish they did. It would make my life a whole lot easier. These subjects are just too nuanced and too complex to simplify in this way. For example, in one of the clips, there was a scene from a workshop where I was talking to a mom with a baby who wanted to go back to work. At one point in that conversation, I said, "You can do no better for your daughter than to give her an example of what a woman in her passion looks like." This makes it sound like I think it is the right answer for all mothers to work. I don't feel this way. I was helping this particular woman to release her resistance to it being right for her specifically to go back to work, rather than to force herself to do something out of a sense of obligation or society's current estimation of moral right.
Yeah, I definitely think that that could have been taken out of context for sure. You know, she's definitely made it a point that it's very hard for women to be both mothers and business people. Because when you have a child, you have to give your all to them. Doesn't mean it's not doable, doesn't mean it can't be managed, doesn't mean there's not a somewhat, you're going to be unhappy about it. But I think a lot of women, like she's saying, feel a lot of guilt because they feel like they're abandoning their child or they're not giving them the time or, you know, the time that they deserve. And sometimes in order for the kid to be happy, the mom needs to be happy. So sometimes you got to give something. This is a very complicated topic, but yeah.
Moms choosing to work or not when they are raising children and the impact that has on their children either way is not a simple subject with simple answers. It is an incredibly complex one, especially in today's society. Honestly, moms choosing to work or not when they are raising children and the impact that has on their children either way is not a simple subject with simple answers. It is an incredibly complex one, especially in today's society. Honestly, I was watching the episode with my team. At one point, I pointed to the TV and said, "Who is that person? I don't like her very much." Not because I was watching the way I really am and don't like what I see, but because of the way this particular episode was edited.
All right, this is really interesting. So the whole debate from the Hulu team, from John and Bits, was basically that they were saying from the interview that I watched, which by the way, if you want to watch it, I'll link it or whatever. They were basically saying that she's just unaware of how she comes across, that she's basically, you know, she's got this God complex, narcissistic, and she just has no idea that she comes across as the way that they portrayed her on the show. And that could be partly true. That may not be true. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. But from what I see of her, she seems to be fairly self-aware. Sometimes though, when you're a leader and you have to carry so much, like there is that intense side of you that comes out that can be also misunderstood. And women in general, I mean, listen, I'm not the type to go, women don't, women's rights and I think everybody's equal, obviously, but a woman being powerful is definitely looked at differently than a man. And yeah, that kind of sucks, because I would like to think it's not true, but I do think that kind of has something to do with it.
The Teal Swan they created in this episode makes me come across very hard, harsh, cold, dismissive, unworkable, domineering, competitive, and angry.
Yeah.
It also made me come across like a person with a superiority complex who is jealous, likes to be the queen bee, and who especially has no room in her life for any other women. This episode did not show my softness, receptivity, workability, or humility. It didn't show the reality of my multifaceted personality.
Once again, I have gone to 2 of Teal Swan's live events here in LA, and I did find her, I mean, she's on stage, okay? She might be portraying something or whatever, but like she was so patient and so open and so soft and so kind. And then when she needed to be direct, then she was direct. Like I found that she was very, very balanced, and there wasn't a lot of ego, to be quite honest, from what I saw. But then again, I'm not in her team. I don't spend time with her personally, so I have no idea.
I've received so many beautiful notes today from the people who know the real me, shocked that I was portrayed in this way. I feel misunderstood. That's part of why I wanted to make this video, and why I've also posted a full, unedited video from one of my workshops, so you can see for yourself how I interact with people in need of my help. It's on YouTube and on my website. Speaking of editing.
Can I also just say something? Like once again, I have worked in mental health. The clients can be very difficult. You're dealing with people who are sometimes broken, they have severe trauma, they're in a state of distress, and it's a lot to deal with. And sometimes you have to match their energy. Sometimes you have to soften your energy. Sometimes you have to be domineering for them to calm down. It just depends on the situation and on the client. So I just want you guys to really remember that, because she's dealing with different people all the time. I mean, she deals with crowds, she deals with one-on-ones, she deals with group situations. It's a lot.
There was a scene where I was being challenged at one of my retreats by an attendee who was concerned that I have no one that I look up to. The reality is that this interaction was crazy long, yet the entire...
Also, if she doesn't look up to anyone, so what? So what? Who cares? Like, and...
Conversation was reduced to several carefully selected cuts that, in my opinion, make me look like I have no tolerance for being questioned, which just isn't true. I invite questioning. The way this segment was cut makes me come across like an aggressive, egotistical megalomaniac, which I'm not. And unfortunately, because these cuts were removed from their full context, you didn't get to see the part where I said what I always say. That once your awareness gets to a certain point, the need for one specific teacher is gone, because you understand that you can learn from anything, everyone, and every single thing you come into contact with in the world.
Yeah, so what she's basically saying is that, like, I don't just have one person that I get inspiration from or wisdom from. It's from everyone, which is actually quite a humbling statement, and I agree with her completely. But even if she was being egotistical about it, and like, I personally don't see the problem with that. You don't have to worship anyone. Like, I don't know.
Thus, everything and everyone becomes your teacher. Unfortunately, my haters will love how this scene is cut. Another example of being taken out of context, when I was talking about not wanting to ever get into the spiritual field, what I actually said is that I never wanted to get into it because spirituality hurt me so much as a child, it being the reason that the man who abused me in childhood was able to gain access to me. Under the cloak.
I have watched quite a few documentaries with her, documentaries or shows or whatever, and she's said this time and time again. It's true. I've heard her say this before. Plus, it's filmed. It's not like she's just saying it now for the first time. So if you look around, you'll definitely find her saying this before.
Of spirituality and my spiritual gifts. The audio that was clipped together with me saying I never wanted to get into this field of spirituality was taken from a separate conversation where I was talking about my frustrations with the spiritual field in general. This segment, along with the scene where my manager Matthias was talking about marketing strategies with our marketing team, suggested that I am against the spiritual field and am in fierce adversarial competition with many of my colleagues, specifically the Dalai Lama, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, and Anthony Robbins.
Okay, so she has defended the Dalai Lama. Something came out recently where the Dalai Lama was kissing a boy or something, and she was explaining how that's a traditional thing that they do in their culture, which obviously looked really wrong, but she was trying to explain it, and saying, it's been taken out of context. This is why they do it, because anyway, I don't want to get into a whole thing, but she's defended the Dalai Lama before. And once again, even if she is in competition with these people, so what? I don't know. Maybe I'm just too blasé about it, but I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, she's, I guess, okay. I guess because, you're a spiritual person, you shouldn't have competition. Maybe. I don't know.
It also made it look like my team and I are not as much about helping people as we are all about numbers and beating the competition.
Okay, that makes sense. Maybe that's why. That makes more sense. So it's about money, basically. It's about making money and not so much about helping people. That makes sense.
Not true at all. Having been an athlete, I love healthy competition, but competition is not what we are doing this for. Also, there are realities to what I do. My manager, who is very sweet, by the way, has a job. That job is to focus on the growth and well-being of my career, especially the more business-sided aspect of what I do, so that I can focus on creating content to help people. Most of my content is free, but I can't produce the content to help people without money to do it. But I never want you to forget that the reason I got into this line of work in the first place, and the reason I'm still in it today, is to help people who are suffering. I am for the spiritual field, while at the same time, I recognize the flaws and dangers inherent within it. And I have deep respect for many of my colleagues, even if at times our opinions differ. As I said earlier, documentaries require selecting some things and rejecting other things. I mean, a lot of other things. But that process can sometimes result in inaccurate representations, like the video of my retreat in which two women are helping each other. I don't actually offer a 2-week retreat for healing. The documentary gives the impression that these women are two people attending a healing retreat of mine and are doing the completion process together. This is not true. They are actually two trainees at my completion process training that are practicing on each other so they can learn how to do it on clients.
Yeah, that's kind of an important thing that maybe they should have pointed out in the documentary. If you're training to become a practitioner, it's very, very different than practicing on a client.
They are not, in fact, two retreat attendees attending a retreat to heal. I would never let people coming to a retreat to get help facilitate completion process on each other. Plus, we always have licensed therapists on hand to help.
That's important. She has licensed therapists to help. That's awesome.
I want to explain something that was not clear in this. First episode. The title of the episode is Lost Toys, because at one point I referred to my followers, as well as myself, as Lost Toys. This is in reference to the island of misfit toys in the old movie Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. In the film, the misfit or lost toys are sentient toys who all have some strange quirk about them, and because of these quirks, these toys feel there is no human child who could possibly want to play with them. So King Moonracer brings them to stay on an island until suitable owners can be found. When I first started holding these events around the world and became familiar with my audience, many of them reminded me of these characters from this movie. And I myself relate to these misfit toys as well. Most of the documentary focused on my work with men and women who feel suicidal. And of course, that's part of what I do, but it's only part of it. From childhood trauma to relationship issues to problems at work to health issues to dysfunctional family systems to subconscious patterns, I offer help regarding anything that causes pain and problems in a person's life, and I take it all very seriously. It's the ultimate responsibility. And by the way, I don't condone suicide, full stop. Statements made by anyone, out of context, sound bites that are given, that give a different impression, are just wrong and don't represent what I teach and how I feel. At the very end of the episode, I made what was supposed to be a cute joke about my rather humorous goal of beating the Pope at spiritual influence because of a most spiritually influential list that comes out each year. But this was edited to make it appear like a very serious, intentional competition that I have with him. It made it seem like I am out to win at any cost, and instead of funny, unfortunately, it came across like I am aggressive, and it came across like megalomania. I guess I need to work on how I convey my sense of humor. And I know.
I mean, yeah, she could have been joking. I honestly should watch The Deep End again just to get another vibe on this, because I would be interested to see if it, I've seen her joke, and like she definitely has like a dry sense of humor, which I do too, and it can come across as like you being serious, but you're genuinely just joking. So
know you're all wondering about that hot tub scene where I got all bothered by the prospect of Juliana coming to live with Blake.
Okay, so this one's interesting. So in the interview of the director and the producer, they both definitely said, yes, she was jealous. Okay.
Unlike how it appeared, this was not a Juliana is sweet and open to Teal, but Teal is cold and rejecting of Juliana thing. I was not against Juliana being in a relationship with Blake, like I'm some jealous ex-girlfriend. In reality, at the point when that hot tub scene was shot, Blake and I were actually having a conversation about the potential problems of him being about to bring Juliana into our highly intense and complex world, as well as the idea of them getting their own apartment and having their own space. I had doubts about Juliana's compatibility to the realities of the life we were living, and a bad intuition about Blake just winging it and hoping for the best.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one. I think Teal's very protective of Blake, and I think they have a very, very, very complex relationship. And I think she's taken on a little bit of the mother figure with Blake. And I understand what she's saying, because she was right. Here's the thing, it turned out to be right. Juliana did not fit in at all with the group and with Teal and her teachings and the way that she did things. I think she wanted to. She seemed really sweet. And Blake kind of seems like a guy who, I don't know. I mean, once again, I don't know these guys, and I just feel really bad kind of putting this judgment on them, but this is what I saw. So it does, yeah. He just seems like a kind of guy that just likes, he's super sweet, but just kind of off with the clouds, if that makes any sense. So I think she was pretty aware of the fact that, hey, this could end up pretty bad if you're not careful with what you're doing.
The reality of my life is that I have to protect myself.
And maybe the jealousy part could be that she was afraid of losing him. I think maybe she did have a fear that he might leave her, which is, you know, it's human nature.
From a person who I don't know being immediately thrust into living in my world. I'm a public figure, like it or not, so I have to be guarded and more careful. Well, there it is. Guess what? I haven't seen any of these episodes, so I will be watching them in real time alongside all of you. Let's hope the anticipation doesn't kill me. Have a good week. If you liked this video,
there you go, guys. That was the first review of her episode. You can definitely tell that she's still very hopeful. She was talking about the good and the bad things that she saw. But yeah, definitely they made her look like a megalomaniac. I can say that word. All right, well, I'm gonna watch episode 2, her review of episode 2, and then I'll post it whenever I got some time to edit and put it together. But I don't know, you guys let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Do you still love Teal after you watched the Deep End? Did it change your opinion about her? Did you watch her videos, her reviews on it? It's just definitely an interesting topic because, you know, is she who they say she is, or is she who she says oh my god, who she says she is? Huh, I said. All right, guys, thank you so much. Talk to you soon.